Hello there. I'm here to show you a wonderful place. A veritable Camelot of the nuclear age. Not made by God Almighty, but the working man. You can be a hero by purchasing a residence in a Vault-Tec vault today. Because if the worst should happen tomorrow, the world is going to need you to build a better day after.
Captain's log. This is day 3 outside the vault. I'm not sure what's worse. I've been living off roaches the size of my torso. Nick will not stop humming 50 show tunes. And we've collectively shit our pants 17 and a half times. If anyone finds this recording, this is episode 15 of the preeminent Wasteland podcast, Read, Watch, Play. We are covering Fallout this week, live on location. For all you vault dwellers and wastelanders out there, we are your dive into the stories we love and how they're adapted. Move aside, 3 dog. Over and out.
Nice. Dude, Amazon Prime does it again. Fallout, baby.
Yeah.
Is this our second or third video game?
Second video game, third video game episode, right? Or no, Uncharted.
The Last
Uncharted.
of Us,
yeah.
and then Uncharted.
Yeah, this is third. But this might be my first Amazon Prime show that I've watched.
Just in general.
Like of an original, like a series produced by Amazon Prime. Like obviously they have tons of stuff on there that they've just acquired the rights to. I don't know. It's like, I don't think of Office as a Netflix show, but that's what I mean.
Right.
Like an Amazon original. I think this is my first because I haven't watched the.
So you don't like good TV, is what you're saying?
Do they have good TV? I've always related them with bad television.
No,
like Rings of Power,
incorrect, sir.
Wheel of Time. I thought they've like really missed the mark on stuff.
I mean, the Wheel of Time was fine. Ring of Power was a little, but Wheel of Time I thought was fine. But they also are nailing it on the comedies. Primo is really funny. The Marvelous Miss Maisel had like 6 seasons and was fantastic. If you're in the room for more of a drama, you can have The Man in the High Castle. I thought that was fantastic. That's also a book. Season 1 is based off a book. We could cover that one. I think it's a really interesting premise. Reacher is an Amazon Prime show, and that's based off some books. Yeah. And then not based off things, but I wrote these down. Just 2 movies on there that I really liked. One of them is The Sound of Metal. Yeah. And that movie is Oscar fantastic. Isaacs. Yeah, and that's an Amazon original.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. And the other one I have here is The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which is a rom-com. But as far as rom-coms go, that's one of my favorite ones.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard of Primo because I was actually made. It's the first show from Jason Concepcion, who he used to do that after Game of Thrones sort of talk show that they started airing on HBO. He hosted that. And then he also hosted a podcast that was maybe one of the most influential for like me wanting to do this. He had a great podcast back in the day. He still does a kind of nerd podcast that just relaunched. But he's great, so that's cool. I'm glad that you like that and knew about it.
I'll tell you what, Primo is good for at least one LOL an episode. Like actually laughing out loud. Yeah. I'm dying. It's one of the funniest TV shows that's kind of airing right now, I think.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. I just I think the issue too is I don't watch a ton of television series. So I think, and they've been investing heavily in that side of kind of the market as opposed to the movie side. Though they've now acquired MGM. So I don't know. Maybe I need to up my game a little bit there. But this feels like a big gamble. They splashed, a ton of money probably to get the rights for this. They got this in 2020, kind of like peak streaming wars, where like it was literally like a nuclear arms race between different streaming companies to like acquire things and put out content.
Yeah.
Fallout's a big risk, and I think it paid off like big time.
I do too. The show is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go for it.
I was just going to say, when we were planning episodes at the start of this year and we knew that this was coming, I think even that, like, we didn't know how big it was going to be then. I mean, they also kind of screwed us over and they said it was going to come out in May and then they bumped it up a month. And I felt like pretty stressed about kind of getting through the prep. But I don't think I was expecting it to have this much of an impact.
No, but I'm glad it did. I think just as we talked about in The Last of Us and Uncharted, it's really cool when video game IP translates to the screen.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, especially there's 5 Fallout games. There's so many directions they can go. They're not following the plot of any one game too closely. They're just building the world, and they can even deviate from something you haven't seen in the games, and it's going to work.
Yeah, though it appears we're heading for, spoiler alert, for the end of Fallout TV series, New Vegas, at least based on that last shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this was a huge one. I mean, we were originally planning on slicing this up into 2 episodes when it was first announced, because I assumed it was going to be a weekly release. I don't know what the standard is for Amazon. Does Reacher release? Is that a binge drop or is that a weekly release?
No, they did the thing where they drop 2 episodes or 3 episodes in the beginning, and then it's every week for 5 weeks or so.
Why didn't they do that for this? I feel like this would have caught on.
They knew they had a hit on their hand.
Yeah, but I feel like then it just gets snuffed out so quick because there's no staying power. Like there's no week-to-week conversation. Like I almost feel like if you do a binge drop, you don't know what you have, and you're like, let's get this all out there.
I don't know. I feel like that week-to-week conversation has died in the last 10 years, and it's not just very few shows command that kind of power to where you'd almost have to wait till season 2, or like you said, you're rolling the dice on whether you have a hit or not, because I don't know. I think I prefer the binge drop for a new show, or at least a half season. Give me like 4 or 5 episodes, because if it sucks, then I can just be done with it in a day, and I'm not waiting weeks to keep giving it a chance.
Yeah, I think I would have wanted a 2 episode drop for this, but that could have been bad. I mean, because to me, we'll talk about it. The first 2 didn't necessarily like latch their claws into me like further on in the series got, but I don't know, man. Maybe it's because of how I like to consume my TV, but the best part of TV for me is getting caught up in the week to week excitement with people and discussing it. And I think back to things that I mentioned, like a Lost, or even more recently, I remember when WandaVision was coming out on Disney Plus, like that was huge week to week, and people were like obsessing over it. Or we just finished Severance, and I was reading through forums, because I had no life, on what people were talking about with Severance when that was coming out. And I think it just kind of, I feel like it loses its moment sort of in the sun a little too fast with a binge drop. But, if you don't know how it's going to hit, sometimes you want people to have like full access to it to go through it, rather than the potential of it being like a stinker and then losing people, in a slow death week to week. So it's a tough call.
Yeah, but I also think to your 2 things. One, to your point about Fallout, it wasn't till after episode 3 that this started
totally
putting me on the edge of my seat, right? You needed episodes 1 through 3 and they were entertaining enough, but I'm glad I could just watch it at my leisure. And 2, I think WandaVision's a bad example here, because WandaVision's the 700th entry in the Marvel IP. And we've said it a million times. Once you've earned that kind of respect that you're going to do something well, and people are more willing to give it that chance. And I think WandaVision with Disney and Marvel, I mean, everyone's so engrossed in Marvel as just culturally, that they're going to give it the week to week opportunity that a random show is not going to get based on new IP.
Yeah, but it's not new IP. This has a built-in cult following. Yeah. I guess I just feel that like if I look at a prestige service that is known for television, like an HBO, they would never do this. and I see streamers that I maybe wrongfully associate with lower quality, like an Amazon or like a Netflix show. They do this. But it could also just be preference. I wish we got this in a three episode drop and then week to week from there. Like if I could have this in my perfect way. But I'm sure there's people who make more money than me, making these decisions for a reason.
You might get that for season 2 now that
I think so. Yeah.
It's been same with The Last of Us. Now that they've been a smashing success, you're going to get all those week to week podcast post episode type.
I mean, that happened though with The Last of Us.
That's true. But that's HBO. And
Yeah.
HBO doesn't miss. They know they don't miss.
Yeah.
They put their big boy pants on and they said, we're doing this anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
Watch me.
I actually didn't know that Amazon did that at all because I always associated with whole season drops as like a Netflix thing.
I'm pretty sure they did that with Reacher season 2, where they dropped 2 and then they did week to week after that. But I was late to the party, so I caught up by episode 6 or something. But then the last 2 I had to wait for, I think.
Yeah.
And isn't Jack Ryan Amazon as well? That was a huge success.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, they may drop all at once, but Rewatch Play drops every other week. How about that segue? We come out on Tuesdays before we get too far into this. We cover your favorite adaptations. Follow us. I mean, hitting, subscribe, follow, like whatever it is. I don't know. YouTubers have this better down on what you're supposed to smash on the forums, but
smash the like button.
I know. Yeah.
We don't have the follow button.
We don't have a like button.
We do. On YouTube, we do.
It's true, we do. Yeah, we're on YouTube now. Static images, check it out. If for some reason you listen to podcasts on YouTube, I don't know who does that, but if you want to, there's people there doing it right now. So get over there. Like I said,
Thank you, mom and dad.
Yeah, yeah, literally. I did send that version to my mom because she didn't know how to use other podcast apps. Yeah, like we said this week, chatting about Fallout. Nick, if people want to follow the show, where can they see what we're up to?
Yeah. First, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe. As Randy said, it helps other people find the show and it really helps us out a lot. If you are on Instagram, because Instagram is fun and that's the best way to communicate with us. You can find us at Read, Watch, Play Podcast. We'll post about upcoming episodes, so you'll be in the know of what's coming up, what's coming out. We post something every time we release. We would love to hear your comments. And if you have bad reviews, you can write into our Gmail at readwatchplaypod@gmail.com, because we definitely check that all the time and we'll certainly maybe get back to you if you heckle us. So
we're flagging to spam.
We got that going for us.
Spoilers. We are 100% going to spoil the TV show, I'm sure.
Yes.
Probably not until we get really into the episode. So if you just kind of want to hear some general thoughts as we get into it, you can kind of check the show notes and see where like the discussion's beginning. Probably once we get to the plot section, I'm sure we're going to really start spoiling stuff. Video game wise, Nick and I play different Fallout games. So we're not going to spoil the games. We're going to talk about them. So if you don't want to know the plot at all of the video games, and consider that a spoiler, be warned. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what we like, what we didn't like, before shifting into the show. So you have been warned. If you haven't watched the Fallout TV series, proceed with caution. I think we're hitting some pew-pews first.
Pew. Yeah, let's hit the rapid fires.
Yeah.
Set up the episode with them.
What you got?
Now, Randy, we're doing these early, so you really can't elaborate or no one's going to listen to the rest of this episode. You got to stick to one word. What did you enjoy more, the game or the show?
The show.
Is the time investment to beat the game or to get through the game worth it?
Yes.
I disagree.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. I disagree.
You said one word. No commentary.
Disagree. There you go. I'll drop the I. Brotherhood of Steel. Which did you like more, show or game version?
Game, like not even close.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Other than Lucy, which vault dweller from 31 is most likely and least likely to survive on the surface?
Least likely is Norm, 100%. He is self-admitted that he cannot do that.
Yeah.
Most
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, most likely. I don't remember her name, but the woman who's pregnant with the eye patch, she's got some spunk.
Yeah.
That she's a survivor, but there's also something going on with her.
Well, she's from 31.
She's from 31, so. Yeah. What is it? When times are gone, vote 31 or something like that. I forget the saying. You got any others?
No, that's all I got for you today.
I got one or two.
Oh, Randy.
Who would be a worse vault neighbor? Newman from Seinfeld or Janice from Friends?
Janice from Friends. Because you cannot get away from sound in a vault. You're in a big metal trap.
Yeah.
Dude, no.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just imagining what the house aroma of Newman's vault smells like. Can't be great.
Still better than oh my god.
Yeah,
we're not doing that.
If you could bring one movie into the vault, what would it be?
Dumb and Dumber.
It's a great one. You got to keep the vibes up. Up.
I'm not bringing some super drama that's going to bring down the whole vault. I mean,
no. Though I'd almost be like, maybe you got to be something a little bit longer, just to drag out the time, like a Lord of the Rings extended edition. But
no, here's the thing. You said you can only bring one, so that means you can't bring the whole trilogy.
Yeah,
and that is so rude to bring one movie and there's a trilogy and you just can't watch the next two.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's so mean.
Yeah. I'd probably bring Two Towers though. So we said...
So you're not even bringing the first one?
No, second one's my favorite.
So you're going to, at movie night, with this whole vault and these kids that have never seen it, you're just going to be like, yeah, this happens before. Here's this movie. Oh yeah, and there's an end too, but you don't get to see any of that.
But the thing is, I know those movies so well, I could reenact them for the vault. Do maybe a puppet show. Maybe...
But does the vault want that?
They're gonna, after 200 years... They're going to be begging for my paper mache Lord of the Rings reenactment. So we played different Fallout games. So we're going to describe a little bit of what the Fallout world is, and then talk a little bit about, kind of our respective games. So, and I'm not even sure if this is relevant for all of them. I've played Fallout 3 prior to the show. I had not touched a Fallout game. I knew what Fallout was, but I'd not touched it. So this is a general world of Fallout here. All the games, as far as I'm aware, in the show are set in a post-apocalyptic United States that takes place in various parts of the U.S. In Fallout 3, it was the D.C. area. In Las Vegas, I'm pretty sure, I'm just making assumptions, in New Vegas, it's in Las Vegas. Fallout 4, where was that set?
The Northeast.
Like
I'm
Massachusetts?
Pretty sure like Massachusetts, okay. Connecticut type area. I don't know if it's necessarily super specific, but that's what I feel like I remember.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's kind of an alternate timeline version of our world where there was a Great War in 2077 that spawned from a post-World War II society where it kind of shifted into this retro futuristic environment. And there was a nuclear war and a fallout and a fight for resources.
Yeah. And I want to just jump in and add something because I really want to make fun of you for saying retro futuristic because that sounds like the ultimate contradiction. But that is the perfect way to describe the world. So for a little bit of context, it's basically set in the 60s. I mean, they have tube televisions. the tweed suits. I mean, it's the stupid top hats. Like, it's ridiculous. But then you also have these robots powered by nuclear fusion that do everything for you.
Yeah.
It's like weirdly futuristic with the tech, but they couldn't figure out TV. And they got stuck in 1960.
My kind of initial assumptions about the game when I was thinking about the timeline and I didn't know it, even watching the show, was like, I assumed that the war happened in like 1960, where these people like went into the vaults and then like culture stopped then. But it's not really the case. It continued for another 100 years. It's just like something in that time period. We never left that culture.
Everything comes back in style if you wait long enough.
Yeah. Or, who knows, maybe we did progress past that culture, but, people in the vaults, like, for some reason idolize that, and that's what became the predominant culture. I don't even know.
Well, no, because Fallout 4, you start pre-bombs dropping. That's what you're in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh,
yeah, you are, like, 2077, you are there.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I mean, Fallout 4 starts with you like securing your spot in a vault.
Interesting.
With like the vault salesman.
That's cool. So yeah, my next line is probably irrelevant then, where I was thinking, I was like, from what I understand, I assumed that all of these games, you start in fallout shelters. And these are kind of bunkers built where kind of the wealthier class took refuge. Unbeknownst to them, that these bunkers were also designed to perform like psychological experiments. And every game, I was thinking, kind of has a similar trajectory where you start in a vault. For some reason, you have to leave the vault and you explore whatever the wasteland is surrounding that vault. But I don't know if that's accurate anymore.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you're only born in the vault in the first Fallout game.
You're born in the vault in the third game. Yeah.
I thought, is it game 3? I thought in Fallout 3 you find out that that's a lie, that you weren't actually born in the vault, that your father was a wastelander. And you were born outside, but brought in as like a young child. Yeah,
that's true. You grew up in the vault. Similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. I mean, when I was watching the show and people had said, oh, the show's not following a specific game I was watching, I was like, this is very similar to Fallout 3, like with Lucy's story.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry. I was thinking more of like you grew up in the vault. And like, that you show your progression, and like you're celebrating birthdays in the vault. You're like learning to walk in the vault. Like things like that happen in the third one.
That's weird because, not a spoiler, in the fourth game, like the bombs drop, you run to your vault, and then you're put in a cryo chamber, and it's 200 years later, but you're a fully fledged adult when you go in and come out.
Yeah, that's funny because like this was something a little bit inventive, where you're probably, I don't know, a toddler at this point, and you're walking around picking up baby books, and you're reading about the like skills that are in the game, and like assigning yourself points after you like flip through the baby book and you read, and you're like, here's what leadership is, and here's what strength is. And then it's like, which one do you want? And I was like, I thought that was like a pretty creative way to do this without like breaking immersion and like just having a screen pop up.
Yeah.
Like, pick your skills. I thought that was fun. But these games are a common theme of them, with that said, is these are role-playing games where I'm assuming in all of them, you design a character, you name them. Like in mine, you like you are born, and the doctor is like asking the parents like, oh, what's, so-and-so's name? And then you type it in, and then Liam Neeson, who's your dad in my game, says the name back to the doctor.
Okay.
Because you can like pick some like predetermined names or something. And yeah, so, like I said, role-playing game, open world game. And my thought is that like a big thing of these is the main storyline or the quest. It's like, it's important, but it's not necessarily the main thrust of what they're trying to do here. This is a true open world where the main story is almost a vehicle to just get you to traverse the landscape, stumble into stuff. There's a variety of options and branching storylines. So it's all over the place with that. But yeah, I mean, it's a game about exploration and discovery, and you come across people, you fight people, and that's not to say that there isn't a central narrative or kind of like a compelling story within there, but that's not the point. And this is referenced perfectly in the show when the goal states the wasteland's got its own golden rule. Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time. And without spoiling it, is that what went on in Fallout 4 for you, Nick?
Yeah. It's the perfect open world video game quote. Yeah. And then in the context of Fallout, that was a chef's kiss to the writers of the show. That was fantastic writing.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of my sort of intro plot, which I don't think is even that necessary because it is very similar to the show where, in mine, you're born in the vault, you're born inside the vault. You get raised in the vault. For some reason, the overseer is kicking your father out of the vault, or he leaves, so he's coming to find you. I think your dad leaves, if I remember correctly. So the overseer is like coming to find you when you're like a teenager-ish, like maybe a young adult. So you got to escape the vault because he's looking for you, and you're going to find your dad to find out what happened. You're in the DC area, so it's Capital Wasteland. Your things are happening, at the Jefferson Memorial. You see the White House just like a crater, stuff like that. And it's a similar
sounds
story.
Like the perfect like punk rock band, Capital Wasteland.
It is a pretty cool, double word hit there.
You've got the Sex Pistols and you've got Capital Wasteland.
Yeah. Yeah. Rolls off the tongue nice. But yeah, you look for your dad. You run into bullshit at every turn. You're in DC, so there's lots of subway tunnels, which are scary, and I avoided at all costs. But that was the main emphasis, of kind of my game. What you said, so the setup for yours was you're pre-bomb, you're buying your vault.
You're like day of bomb, you spend less than 1 day in the
so you procrastinated on buying this vault until the day of the bomb, I
guess. Yeah, it was kind of weird. The salesman's like really pushy, and you're like, why is the salesman pushy? And you're trying to figure. So eventually, I don't think you have to, but I just bought it, and then all of a sudden a bomb drops, and you run with your wife and son to the vault, and you find out that your vault is, I want to say it's like 101. I don't remember, but it's a cryo chamber, and so they put you to sleep in one, and they put your wife and son to another. And at some point, the cryo chamber kind of falters, and you wake up for a second, and you're watching somebody opening your wife's vault, or not vault, cryo chamber. They shoot your wife, they take your son, and you fall back asleep, and you wake up, and you have no idea how long it's been.
Wow.
You get out, and the whole plot is you're looking for your son.
Wow. It's pretty intense.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not dissimilar to the other games though, because it's a first person role play, like same world, but you're in the Northeast. There's factions like the Brotherhood of Steel. We have the Minutemen in ours, which little throwback there
to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got the same themes, like people doing things for the greater good. You're looking at ethics and morality. It's all about family, and then living in the past or embracing the future.
Yeah. So you're playing as Vin Diesel?
Yeah, it's basically Vin Diesel plus nuclear bomb plus retro cars equals Fallout 4.
Nice. And so the third one came out in, I think it was 2007. Let me check here. 2008. This was the one that kind of
get that wrong.
Yeah, I know. This one was the one that gained a lot of steam. Though there were huge fans of the first two. I'm not going to cover a ton of background on this. It was originally produced by another studio called Interplay. Was eventually, they kind of, I think, went bankrupt. and then was acquired by Bethesda. Bethesda has taken the series since then. Though Fallout New Vegas was produced by another studio, actually. So there's like some contention of like people really love New Vegas, I think, and then it actually wasn't produced by Bethesda.
And that was between 3 and 4, right? It was like
I
Fallout
think so.
3, Fallout New Vegas, because Fallout 4 didn't come out till
It's
like
pretty
2015.
recent. Yeah. And then
it's almost a decade ago.
Yeah. And then Fallout 76, I think, was a hot mess and was like an entirely supposed to be like multiplayer online experience, from what I
I
understand.
think it bombed, didn't it? That one did really poorly.
I think it had a similar trajectory. I don't think it picked up as much as I'm thinking of, like, definitely did not have the highs and lows of a Cyberpunk, where awful start and then has like really come through in the end. But I think that they've done a lot of work to it, from what I understand. So you had not played, or we both started the game prior to the show, but we never played this before, like growing up. That's accurate?
Yeah, I was pretty familiar with it. I like role-playing games. I enjoy these massive open worlds with all the bullshit that I get to do on the side.
That's true. You're a Assassin's Creed person.
Oh, I love the Assassin's Creed games. And I play those for hours and hours. And The Witcher and Skyrim.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this one just like never was in my hopper to play. I don't know why. I didn't actively make that choice. It's probably because once you start playing one of those games, you sink so much time into it that you just can't play all of them. You have to pick and choose. And I just think Fallout never made it for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it was, if I think back to that time, Fallout 3 was the most acclaimed game they released. That was in 2008, we said. And that was peak. Like, I just got my Xbox 360 and everybody is playing Call of Duty online. And that's like all I was doing at that time. So I was still playing like some single player games then, but most of my like gaming life was spent like experiencing this world of like online multiplayer for the first time. So I think that was a factor. Yeah, I was not that great.
The worst COD player.
So I think that had something to do with like why I never picked this up. In that I just like, Fallout 3 kind of passed me by as I was doing other things. And I don't know if it was the same for you, but I started this game maybe a month before the show. I got maybe a third of the way through it. The show came out. We watched all of the show, and then I finished the game. So I kind of like had a staggered experience. Did you finish playing before the show started?
I did. I sat down and played the game straight through, and only very recently watched the show.
Yeah.
So for context, we're recording this on May 12th.
Yeah.
I finished the show about a week ago, and it's been out for about a month.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm similar, like, despite never playing it growing up, I knew of the series. Every time you go into like, a GameStop or something, I knew the cover. Like I knew. And I was also confused because I was like expecting that to be more prominent in the beginning of the game. And I knew of like the Vault Boy, and I knew of kind of like the 50s-ish culture.
Yeah.
But I also think I stayed away because I didn't really play a ton of RPGs growing up, and I get overwhelmed by them and by choice. And I kind of like that stuff to be done for me in a game. So this was a new foray into like more of an RPG game than I'm really used to.
I mean, you said, I'm just going to jump in there real quick. You said you're not really into the RPGs, or maybe a little overwhelmed by them. Did you like how this game explored different viewpoints and themes through the different characters and factions, or would you have enjoyed this game more if it was that singular focused experience on the main storyline?
Yeah, I think I gravitate in preference toward a more linear game where I feel like I'm on a track.
Okay.
However, it's almost like I have to push through the barrier of feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Where at the start of this game, when I'm in the vault and I have like full control for the first time and I'm trying to get out of the vault before the overseer finds me, I got so distracted by walking around that I'm like, oh my God, I can pick up a coffee mug. I can pick up this clipboard. I don't even know what I'm doing with this stuff, but I'm just picking it up, all of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even like what? Like I can interact and pick up everything. That was freaking me out. And then the first time,
candy. Ooh,
yeah,
piece candy. Ooh, piece candy.
Literally. Yeah. It's like when I play Red Dead Redemption and I'm like, all right, I have an hour to play. And then I end up picking flowers for an hour and a half. And I'm like, didn't even do anything. So it gets really overwhelming to me. And then when you first level up and there's like 20 options and I can add points among them, and I'm like, I don't even know what any of this does or like what I want to be doing. And then you get a perk and I'm like trying to read these. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So that stuff, like it can stop me from, not stop me from playing, but like I don't get latched onto it quick. But once I push through there, I typically enjoy it. And I did. Yeah. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I think I don't agree, but I think you and I have always been different in how we like to play video games because I enjoy that immersive story. And I love when I'm just picking flowers for an hour. And then I can make all these like different concoctions, or I have to go, my radiation levels got up in Fallout and I got to go figure out how to make Rad-X, and I'm running around for 2 hours trying to find all the ingredients, and you run into different things and people and you're like, oh, this little tidbit about the world I just learned. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I do too. And this is the type of game where if I was 13 when this came out and I had zero responsibilities, would have been obsessed. Like I could have put 200 hours into this. It is a little, what I found the most trying for this, and I enjoyed this game a lot, was that when I had 45 minutes after work before I like started cooking dinner and I wanted to play, and like I'd jump into it and I got absolutely nothing done. that was frustrating.
Yeah.
But it was, there was a lot of fun, stuff within it. And, I think to put a fine point on it, like I'm just a person who gets overwhelmed by choice in life, and gaming is no different to that. And if I can power through it, I can have a really good time. And I'm excited now that I understand the mechanics and I'm even done the main storyline. So it's at the point where I could throw this on a Saturday morning. I could put a podcast on because I don't need to listen to Three Dog anymore. And I can just kind of like explore the world and like see what bullshit I get into. So I did like that. As you think about the game, what did you think of the story? Like in terms of like the characters, the plot, the world?
I thought the plot was pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Especially the main storyline.
It's a compelling thing.
Yeah. And I think they built a really interesting world. They did post-apocalyptic, which obviously has been done so many times before, but I think this was a pretty fresh take on it. I really liked the different factions and what the different factions stood for and kind of what they were exploring with that. I thought the characters were interesting. But in terms of gameplay, like if I'm thinking about the main storyline and the gameplay, I didn't like the fighting mechanics of Fallout 4. It's the dual joystick
system.
Yeah, with the VAT system. I thought the VAT system was interesting. I was just like, I don't know. It just something about the way you had to move and look, and it just wasn't my favorite. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a better explanation than that. So I know that's not a criticism of the game. That's just my personal preference. But the story itself, the characters, the world, all great. But also Fallout 4 was like game of the year. So that might be the best entry in terms of story. So I'm curious to see what you're about to say about Fallout 3 and anything else you've played.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat where if I think about the concept of Fallout, love it. Like super cool. Like there's this nuclear fallout, pun. And, people have to go into these vaults. Not everyone gets to go into the vaults. Culture gets stuck in this 50s. So there's already like these unique twists and differentiation within this game that I enjoy. And I was like, this is very compelling of like the thrust of this story.
Yeah.
100% agree. The actual like combat and stuff like that didn't totally jive with me. I got more accustomed to it the further on I got into it, but I wouldn't say like I was ever like,
Definitely.
wow, I'm having a blast with this combat. Like that, everything felt a little bit stiff to me.
I'm going to say I did
Yeah.
skip all of the tutorials. I just figured I was going to know how to do this. So
Yeah.
it could be my fault that this was frustrating. And by
Yeah.
could, I mean, it is my fault that it was frustrating because I skipped all the tutorials, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't really know if we had real tutorials for the combat in mind. I'm trying to think. I think the first time you enter into the vats, it does give you a tutorial, which for me, like I accidentally did, where when I'm trying to escape my vault, I see the overseer harassing his daughter, who's my best friend growing up. Like, where is, she, tell me where she is. And like, I just like snuck up to him because I was like trying to hide, and I saw like a button to like enter VAT. So I'm like, oh, let me click this. And then it walks you through the tutorial. And then I like killed him with a baseball bat. And like I was like, oh my God, was I supposed to do that? Like, did I just fail the mission? And I realized, oh no, you can do whatever the hell you want in this game. But I was like, I don't think I had a tutorial for mine either.
Remind me not to give you a baseball bat when I see you next month.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. But I was always like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like you can, do whatever the hell you want in this game. I did
like that. There's no rules.
There's no rules.
You can play however you want.
Yeah. And that gives me a little anxiety where like, I'll be totally honest. Like I'm the type of person where when I get to something like that in a game, unless I'm like really, really invested in the story, I will look up on my phone and be like, what happens if I disarm this bomb or don't disarm this bomb? Like, because I'm like, I'm not going to replay the main story in this probably. And I'd like to know, like, does this give me good karma or bad karma? Like, what kind of is the decision tree here? So
I'll Google it.
Yeah, I'll look.
I'll be mid game and I'm Googling what happens if I don't do this.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I will say like the story for Fallout 3 in terms of like the actual narrative, it didn't pick up for me until the very end. Like it was like the last 3 missions that like I got really like invested in it.
Okay.
And I think part of that is I like having companions in my gaming journeys, and maybe like I missed out on some of that because I was like mainlining the story so hard in this to finish it before the show.
Yeah.
But I didn't get my first companion until like the 3rd or 2nd to last mission. And then once I did, I was like, finally, like I don't have to walk around this wasteland alone. So I was really
feel
pumped
like you
about
probably
that.
missed something there.
I think I did. I had opportunities. Like I met someone in the city called Megaton, and I could ask him to join me, and then he just like flat out refused me in the beginning of the game. So I was like, oh, well, shit. And then I was like trying to find him, and I never could find him again. So you mentioned you didn't, the kind of combat didn't work for you. In terms of like some of the other stuff surrounding the game, the Pip-Boy or, the cutscenes, the missions, kind of what did you think about that stuff?
I felt like it gets very repetitive because you have essentially, we have the Minutemen, and that's who you kind of meet first because you help them out as part of the main line. And then the Minutemen, you get these missions, and it's like, oh, this outpost needs help. And you go and you kill a couple people, and then you come back, and they're like, oh, now you have a new Minuteman. And then you go do it again and again, and it just keeps happening. And like the Brotherhood of Steel, you get these Brotherhood of Steel missions, and it's kind of like, we need this relic. It's a toaster. And you go and you do that, and it's the same thing. And in between, you're still moving the main line forward. But I don't know. There were times in the game where I felt really bored because I felt like I had been doing the same mission over and over for 4 or 5 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, what I mean when I was like, the missions are just the vehicle for getting you to move across. Because I mean, in mine, every every mission, it was like you get somewhere, they tell you, hey, this thing we need is in Vault 87. You got to go there. It's surrounded by radiation, but there's a back entrance you can get in through this garage. And, you know, it feels like the entire point of that mission is like, you need to traverse the landscape to this new area and see what bullshit happens across the way.
And avoid the way overmatched enemies you're going to run into.
Yeah, exactly. So, I felt that a bit. My game really didn't. I think there were 3 cutscenes in my game that, like, a true cutscene. And 2 of them was the start and the ending. And there was only one other time where it slipped into a true cutscene. Everything else was like, I couldn't draw my weapon, but I still had movement control. So it didn't really break immersion a lot in my game with kind of the cutscene. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It kind of reminded me of the newer God of War, where sometimes I didn't even know cutscenes were going on because it just looked so real. Did your game have cutscenes?
A few, but I think overall I'd agree with what you just said. There's very few that took you out of the immersion, but there are times when, or even when you can't like walk around, but you can look around and you're still in control and you're still in the game, but you have to get this piece of exposition, so they make you stand there. Yeah.
What did you think of the Pip-Boy?
It was fine. It's a cool way to find and store information and have your map. I think it's better than having to pause the game every time you want to look at a map. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But it didn't, other than the novelty of it and it being a really interesting way to have the things you need. I mean, it still takes up your whole screen. You're just looking at your wrist instead of pausing the game. So I guess that really is a moot point, but
yeah, to me, I thought it was one of the most creative ways to have a kind of inventory system in a game that I've ever seen, where it completely didn't break immersion. You know, your wrist comes up and you're managing everything on there, and it feels like you're not even breaking the flow of the game. Like it just felt very real, and I really appreciated that, and I thought that was like such a fun mechanic. So I like the Pip-Boy a lot. I got very attached to my Pip-Boy. The one thing that I want to know is, did you come across any freaky vaults in yours?
Yeah, dude. I had Vault 81 in mine, and basically all of the humans were in there to be test subjects so they could cure all diseases known to man. So I pulled from IGN kind of a summary of what I learned in Vault 81 because they did it better than I did.
Yeah.
So Vault Tech scientists would expose various diseases to inhabitants as well as cures to observe and record their effects. During the Great War, only 4 scientists were sealed inside with the residents and plan to continue with their experiment. However, the overseer of the vault, Dr. Olivet, decided to deactivate the disease/cure distribution system and sealed off the scientists in a secret section of the vault, trapping the scientists so they couldn't complete their mission.
Damn.
Yeah, and then you find out they had continued the experiment, but just on the giant rats that they were finding.
Yeah.
And then you like find all their bodies, and you can look at the computer and like read about their experiments.
Did you have to fight any giant rats?
No, but you did a lot of fighting to get into the vault.
Yeah. Oh, classic. Yeah. It's necessary. Yeah.
What about you?
The most interesting.
How many vaults did you find? I only found like 2 or 3. I think there's like 5 but I found 2 or 3.
I think I went into 4 vaults. I think so. I'll have to think about that. One for sure, as part of a mission, was 112. And that's where, your dad is supposedly, went to this vault, and you go there to look for him, and you kind of get in there, and there's all these sort of cryo chambers in the vault. It's completely, you go into the vault and nobody's around. People are in these cryo chambers, and there's one chamber that's open and available. So you get in there, shut the chamber, and you go into a simulation of like a kind of like 50s Leave It to Beaver town, and you're walking around and it's all black and white, and there's like people in the town and everyone's acting weird. And without spoiling too much, you need to figure out how to get out of the simulation, or who's running the simulation, and it's one of the people within the simulation. And you have to solve the code for how to start something that causes the end of the civilization. So it's pretty crazy, and it's like pretty messed up. Damn. Where you go on this computer and you read about all the simulations that this guy's been like putting these people through. It's pretty crazy stuff.
Okay.
But I was like, that's one of my favorite things. And one of the things I was looking forward to seeing most in the show was like just what crazy shit they're getting up to in some of these vaults. Cause it was always off the walls.
Yeah. Like Vault 4 in the show.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of my favorite parts of the show. Before we move off too much of the game, you said you play a lot of open world stuff, a lot of RPG. Mm-hmm. Karma systems are usually prevalent in that. Where does Nick Hinkson lean on the karma system?
I mean, say one thing about Nick Hinkson is that he's the ultimate bad boy. When you think about throughout history, you've got James Dean, Charlie Sheen, Nick Hinkson. The names are synonymous. So I definitely push the boundaries of where the game will take me, but I'm also having multiple save points so I can go back and do it a different way.
Just in case.
And just see how the game plays out, depending on how you do certain things.
So is your first instinct to always hit the mean dialogue choice? Is that where you're going?
It depends on my character.
Yeah.
Because if your character is super sassy and funny with it, I think it's hysterical, and I'm always going to do it just to hear what comes out of their mouth.
Yeah.
If the dialogue's not great, or the response, like the mean response is just no, then I'm like, I'm just going to go with the nice route and get the story that I think they want me to have.
Yeah. It depends on my audience. If it's someone that I feel bad for, or it's a kid, I'm usually nice.
You can't do mean things to children in these games, no matter
unless they're annoying. There was one kid on the playground in this game that was just like pissing me off, so I was just a jerk to them.
I also think it depends on what they're asking you too.
Totally. Yeah.
He's like, hey, you want to help me break into the ice cream parlor? You can be a jerk to him all day. But he's like, hey, my dad's missing. I'm like, oh man, I gotta be nice. I gotta be nice.
Yeah. One thing that was tough in mine that made it a little hard for me to engage, and I did really enjoy this game, was there was just very few redeeming people in mine. And it's hard for me to like really get invested when I just I felt like Lucy, where I was just like, literally everyone is just such a shithead, like out to get me. And like, that's a little draining. And like, it makes me not totally want to come back for more all the time.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I hear you.
Yeah. So as you think about, moving to the show, what were you, as you played this, like, what were you excited to see in the show? Well, what did you think was like important for them to be doing, as you thought about the adaptation?
I really wanted to see the Brotherhood of Steel played out. I mean, they've got to do the vault, and they've got to do it in a big way.
Yeah.
And that vault dwellers have to be involved. But when I thought about the open world, what I wanted to see was how the Brotherhood of Steel played out. And I was hoping they would have those mega suits that you wear as part of the Brotherhood of Steel. But other than that, I was really excited just to see how are they going to tie in elements of the games that are consistent throughout. Your ghouls, your things being radioactive, and how are they going to put the radiation poisoning that you experience throughout the game in the show? Just little things like that. What about you?
It's funny that you say Brotherhood of Steel, because by the time I got to the Brotherhood, I met them early in my game. They kind of came and saved the day in one part where it was like one of the first times I run across super mutants, and I'm like, I literally have a baseball bat and this Chinese pistol, and I was like, I'm gonna get fucked up here. Like, I don't
Yeah.
stand a chance.
Yeah.
And then they like come around the corner and I'm like, oh, thank God. So you like meet them there, but then you kind of set off from there and you kind of don't run into them again for a bit. So I wasn't too invested in the Brotherhood storyline or anything about them by the time I watched the show, because I didn't have a relationship to them. So I was really excited to see how they handled different vault experiments. And honestly, my top excitement was, what is compelling about Fallout to me is sort of the inciting story. And I was interested to see if they did a sort of Last of Us where they show an origin story that wasn't necessarily as fleshed out as it was in the game. Kind of like, The Last of Us started with that talk show. And I was interested to see like what they were going to do with this, showing the before times.
Yeah.
So I was really eager for that.
Okay.
And I'm glad we leaned into that a little bit with the show of constantly showing Cooper in the before times, which was cool.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. As I think about, it's tough to say. We always talk about what is the most important thing the show needed to get right, or the movie needed to get right to be successful. As I'm new to the series and I didn't have a vested interest in this, I didn't really have a good answer to this question we normally have. But when I thought about, what the show I think did well now that I've seen it and now that I've played the game, I think, it seemed extremely faithful to the games, very respective of the creators and the IP. They really brought Todd Howard into this. I thought the show was very video gamey in a fun way. They really leaned into that. Classic. Gonna definitely talk about this in world building and aesthetics as well. The production design in this, they really brought the Fallout world to life. I mean, the show popped
in the best way possible.
Way possible. Like, looked great. And don't worry, I'll get on my boomer soapbox about, practical effects and prosthetics later. But they did a great job with that. And then I just think they absolutely nailed the intrigue of the world and the vaults and like all that stuff. They did all of that really well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah.
So to close this section out, do you recommend the game? Like, how did this go for you?
Yeah, I think people who enjoy role-playing games will like this. If you're a casual fan of the TV show and a gamer, maybe you would enjoy this. But if you're not a gamer and you like the TV show and you're like, oh, maybe I'll check it out, probably not. It's going to be a huge first time sink. Yeah. So I'm going to say, if you're a gamer who likes role-playing games, this is a pretty good one. If you're not that person, don't play it.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. I mean, if you're a fan of open world RPG style games and you've never played this, like, it's probably like a must play franchise and a must play game. But yeah, if you don't play games, like, there's a lot going on here. Even for me, it was a little stressful. And I was also thinking this was really the first thing we've covered where I was feeling stress about finishing it. Like, prior to us recording, and like I haven't had that yet, where I'm like, man, like, I really got to get through this. And I think that hindered my experience a little bit. If I just like think about it purely as a video game, for me, not totally my style, even though I love things like a Red Dead Redemption that is a little open worldy like that. But I just felt that something in kind of like the main narrative and how you traverse the landscape, it was just a little too lonely for me. But I have massive respect, especially in 2008, for like what this game pulled off. I thought it was really cool, and the variety is truly insane. And the one just anecdote I'll give to that I thought was really cool with this was I died probably 9 times leaving this one city, Megaton, to go to this next location for a mission. And every time I was taking the same path and I was walking behind this billboard, and every time I walked behind this billboard, there was something going on there that kept killing me, but it was never the same thing. Once there was a group of mercenaries who saw me and then started hunting me. Once there was a group of robots having like a cult meeting over there. The other time, there was like this band of raiders picking or like in a fight with these scorpions. And every time I kept just getting completely fucked by whatever was happening over here. But it was never the same. And I thought that was really cool. And the game is extremely varied, and that is very fun. So if you like that, you'll love this game. I had a good time with it. I'll probably play more Fallout games, but it's not like my complete cup of tea, but I did have a good time. Background on the show. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Todd Howard, we mentioned, he's a big wig at Bethesda, actually from Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And he had a lot of kind of offers to bring Fallout to the big screen. Nothing clicked until he met Jonathan Nolan, brother of Christopher Nolan, who was a big Fallout fan.
Figures.
And Jonathan Nolan, known for directing Westworld and Person of Interest, and this is his third directing credit. But he's had numerous writing credits. He wrote Memento, he wrote The Dark Knight, he wrote Interstellar. He's worked a lot he's basically Christopher Nolan's writer. And Todd and Jonathan hit it off. Rights were acquired by Amazon. They brought on screenwriters for this, Geneva Robertson Dworet and Graham Wagner, to serve as the showrunners. And as I looked into their IMDb, I kind of got the feeling instantly of what they were going for with this. Geneva, she has pretty sparse IMDb, but she has 2 prior things she worked on. Tomb Raider, not the Angelina Jolie one, but a newer version of Tomb Raider, and Captain Marvel. So clearly, like, finding someone who has like a heroine action background.
Yeah.
And then Graham, all of his writing credits are like television sitcoms. Produced Silicon Valley, produced The Office, produced Portlandia. So you're kind of seeing like this comedy TV and this like heroine action and like smash them together. And that was like the vision for what they wanted to bring to this. I am making so many leaps and assumptions in this, but this is what Randy's assuming as I looked at, kind of the showrunners behind this.
I think it's a pretty fair conclusion.
Yeah.
Come to.
Well, I thought so.
I would love to rip you apart for it, but I think you're right. Yeah.
I'll save some of the filming stuff as we get into kind of the aesthetics. But we referenced that the show is not a direct adaptation of any one of these games, kind of pulling, kind of similar to what Uncharted did. But could you give kind of just like, what is the storyline we're following here within the television show?
Yeah, the television show is pretty interesting because you're following 3 storylines, and really you're all looking for family in different ways.
Yeah.
So you have one storyline where you're a vault dweller and your father is kidnapped, so you leave the vault to go find him. You have one character we know his family is missing. We don't know why they're missing. We start getting some glimpses into who they were and where they might be. And you get a third character who's never had a family because his family was killed in bombs that were dropped. He survived, presumably because his mother put him in a refrigerator that, survived the blast. And they're picked up by this cult. And it's this weird, they were in this cult, but they don't quite fit. And then they meet a different character and they're starting to have some sort of connection together. But it's essentially a story about family, and you follow those 3 plot lines and they all intertwine
in various
almost from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's like episode 2 or 3.
A vault dweller, a wastelander, ghoul, and a squire in the Brotherhood of Steel. So like pretty much the 3, outside of like raiders, I would say like the 3 main factions that you kind of see even within the games, at least in my games. Like that's how I kind of divide them up.
Yeah.
You could even just maybe even say like the Brotherhood of Steel, even at a more macro levels, like a mercenary group, which exists in various formats in the Fallout.
I wouldn't even say a mercenary. I would almost say like a religious cult.
Yeah, they are like a religious cult. Yeah. I just think mercenary because of guns.
I mean, they have badass weapons.
Yeah.
As far as the weapons in the wasteland go, the best ones you're getting are from the Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah. So tell me, were you expecting to like this heading in? And after you watched the series, like high level thoughts, like what did you think coming out?
Was cautiously optimistic going in, was excited coming out. I enjoyed the series. I thought the series got better as it went on. I was worried in the beginning that they were going to have, the beginning be pretty good, the middle be great, and the ending be stupid. But the ending was pretty great, and I think it sets up a really exciting second season.
Yeah.
So high level, that's where I'm at with the show. I don't know if you know, but I think season 2's been renewed, but they haven't signed on for seasons after that. Or
yeah, I'm sure. I think so. I know a season 2 for sure is locked in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking, even when we planned to do this, I still wasn't feeling the pull to do like Fallout. Like I wasn't, you started the game even before me. Like I wasn't immediately jumping into the game. I was kind of delaying it. I was playing other things. And then even when the show was getting ready, I don't know. I didn't think I would like it for some reason. So I was like, we'll
is it because it was Amazon? Did you just have this?
Probably. And maybe also a little bit scarred from like what I saw of the Halo. Like, I don't know anything about Halo. I did not have like an Xbox when Halo was big. But I just heard bad things about the show, and not that Amazon did Halo. I don't think they did. But I was just thinking most video game TV adaptations have not gone well outside of The Last of Us. And I just wasn't expecting a lot. I thought it, would maybe be fine. I didn't even know if I was going to like the game. So I was kind of keeping a safe distance from it. And then I started watching the show, loving it. And then like the expectations start going up in my mind. And the first 2 episodes, the pilot episode I thought was good. Second episode was kind of a real big miss for me. But then once we got into the 3rd, 4th, 5th, I started really getting into it, and having a lot of fun. And I came out, thinking it was pretty great, like not perfect, for sure. But definitely well above like average.
Yeah.
I thought this was like really successful for like the swing they took. And, I mean, big swing, and I feel like they knocked it out the park. I don't know why I said that, like the Bear Jew in Inglourious Bastards.
Are you having a stroke, Randy?
But man, like it worked for me. The beginning didn't work for me, but they really hit their stride, I feel like, in the show. Love most of the characters we'll talk about.
You're pulling at me this episode.
I know.
That's the 2nd or 3rd time you said we'll talk about this later, or we'll get to this later.
Yeah.
You're stealing my catchphrase here.
Yeah, I know. I'm teasing it. But no, I enjoyed it. I it's hard not to compare things to The Last of Us when that's the only prestige television video game show we've had. Don't think it's there, but I thought it was very good, and I had a really good time with it. And there's been a lot of discussion and discourse of like, this was creating something on its own, which is very impressive in terms of the story, where The Last of Us was riding a track that was kind of pre-designed already and very cinematic to begin with. So I do really commend them for like building something wholly new in this and having that still be very good. So I thought, really excellent. I'm excited to see what goes on in season 2.
What are your thoughts on the casting? Who knocked it out of the park for you? And
Yeah.
who needs to go back to Beantown?
Daddy fucking Williams. Goes fucking yard. Lucy and the Ghoul. I mean, they were so good. So good. I mean,
Ella
Walton
Purnell
Goggins.
and Walter Goggins. Yeah.
So good. I didn't know Ella Purnell. I'm looking at her kind of IMDb. I'm familiar with a lot of stuff she's been in. I've heard great things about that show Yellow Jackets she's in, but I've not seen it. She was new for me. She was exceptional. Goggins, I'm familiar with, and I knew he was great. I mean, he was in the Tarantino Hateful Eight. Was probably the first time I saw him, and he was so good in this. He was really good in this. So I loved those two performances.
He was in Justified too.
Yeah,
and
I haven't seen that. Did you watch that?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah. Did you Ella Purnell, Goggins, did those work for you in the show?
Oh, yeah. They absolutely knocked it out of the park. I didn't know Ella Purnell really before this. Kind of like I was familiar with her and I knew some things she'd been in were highly rated. I hadn't seen them. Walter Goggins, I'm familiar with, but I think in this show, he kind of punched above his weight class. I thought this was a really outstanding performance from, and not that I haven't liked him in other things.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've liked him to the extent as I think he is the perfect ghoul for the character they created. Yeah.
I don't know, he's got an aura about him on screen that he draws you in for sure. I don't know what it is. And we're like, even with so much prosthetic on him, like you can still tell it's him.
But you also have him playing essentially, I feel, two different
characters. Yeah.
You have him playing the ghoul perfectly, and he really does a good job of being the, outcast Hollywood before the bombs drop. I think we're going to talk about performances in the episode, and I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2, to be honest, or even 3, where they show the bombs dropping and he's doing the birthday party with his daughter there.
Yeah, I think that's the pilot.
I think so. The sadness in his eyes when you kind of realize that he's there because he's fallen from grace for whatever reason.
Yeah.
He really nailed that for me. Yeah. And I think he came out with haymakers and didn't slow down.
Yeah. I agree. He was really good. It's the type of performance similar to something in a show like a Game of Thrones where there's various perspectives and storylines you're hopping between, where when it gets to when you see like new scene pop up and it's a scene with Walton Goggins, you're instantly like, oh yeah, like let's go. Like you're never sad to see and have time spent with him in the show. So he was really great. How did you feel about Maximus, or do you have something more to say on Walton?
No, I was actually going to say that there's 3 supporting characters I also feel knocked it out of the park, and we would be remiss if we didn't discuss. Kyle MacLachlan, who played Hank. I thought that was a good performance. Leslie Uggams as Betty. I thought Betty's character was fascinating. I loved seeing Betty when we were in the vault and I knew Betty was in the scene.
Yeah.
Instantly better scene.
Yeah.
Even
the vault
with
stuff
Rico
was just so good.
Yeah.
Hank was her dad, right?
Hank was her dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just trying to piece together the names because she always called him her dad.
And Sarita Chowdhury. Am I saying that correctly? Moldaver.
Chowdhury. Yeah.
Chowdhury. Is that what it is? Yeah. Sarita Chowdhury. Moldaver was a fascinating character, and I am really sad that we're not getting Moldaver in season 2.
I was thinking that.
Or at least not post-apocalyptic Moldaver in season 2, because there was a lot of depth to her character, and she knocked it out of the park with it. And that was probably the only loss I really felt from the show was like, oh, crap, like she's gone.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to get away somehow. I don't know. I was just really sad with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few storylines that I'm sad concluded so abruptly or just tidied up at the end of season 1 that I kind of wanted to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Another one being, I can't remember his name in real life, but he was Benjamin Linus in Lost, whose head they cut off in Fallout, who's the scientist. When I saw him, I was like, yes, like love this guy. He plays such a great character in television shows. And I was really bummed that he only lasted a couple episodes into this before Lucy had to chop his head off. And he became
Michael Emerson.
Yeah. And he became pretty much like, the MacGuffin of the television show, of carrying this head across just the plot device, uniting everyone, which I thought was really fun, but I was sad to see him go.
What do you think of that as an actor or like the actor's family, where you're watching this person you care about, or you have your head chopped off and then carried around for 8 episodes and weird stuff shoved up your nose, and then it gets eaten and then uneaten, and then you're seeing your decayed head. That's got to be a weird feeling. I don't know.
I know.
I thought about that a lot.
That is a weird feeling.
Way too much have I thought about what that must feel like.
You talking about chopping heads off just instantly reminded me of the decapitation scene in the vault, where they didn't actually decapitate anyone. You thought the overseer was going to chop off Lucy's head for like all that she caused, but he just like chops the rope. That was really funny. Yeah, that would be weird being his family, but it'd also be fun. Like, oh my God, I just got to do this like completely ham part. Like, I'm sure if you have young kids, it's maybe traumatizing, but if you're just like sitting there with like your spouse, like it's probably funny. Yeah, he was great. I agree. Like you said, I was sad about Moldaver. Everything going on with Vault Tech, I found very interesting and love that. The characters surrounding that. The one that had the highest highs and the lowest lows for me was Maximus. And I think in episode 1 and 2, I just really did not enjoy the Brotherhood stuff. Like, was almost groaning when it was coming on screen. Like, I wasn't invested in it. I was really invested in on the Vault mystery and what was happening with Lucy and with the ghoul. And it just wasn't working for me. But that flipped a little bit when the actual Knight Titus, I think was the name, died. And he took over the armor. And once he got linked up with his new squire, who didn't know who he was, I thought I was starting to enjoy him a lot more. And then once he got with Lucy, and the actor Aaron Moden got to like flex his comedy chops a little bit more when he's like in the vault and he's eating the popcorn and he's like in the bathrobe. I thought he was great in that stuff. Like, that was really, really good. So he definitely was the type of character that grew on me, where I wasn't really initially vibing with it. And I still don't really like when he's trying to do his like tough guy stuff. And maybe that's intentional. It could be. But that was the only one that kind of had some like swings and misses, but also some things that really worked for me. How did you like Maximus?
I agree. I thought the only miss for Maximus was scenes where he's angry or trying to show rage.
Yeah. It's a little too much.
Didn't hit those emotions for me.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, in the vault, he was hysterical. And as a comedic actor, I think he knocked it out of the park. He was really funny. It was just the rage stuff that was missing for me. And even when he's going to save Lucy, it felt cheesy.
Yeah.
And I didn't get, and maybe that was the point, but I would have liked to have seen him really nail like those anger moments, because like I said, the show is essentially about family and the lengths you're going to go for your family.
Yeah.
And if Lucy is becoming his family, then, or that's how it's being portrayed at that point, is that's where it's starting to go. I don't think his emotions feeling cheesy would have been the call that I made.
Yeah. 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 I could see it working.
Like, you can do it in a cheesy way, like him knocking people around in the suit. That was kind of like corny and fun.
Yeah.
but I still wanted to feel the anger or at least fear from him when he's going to save Lucy, and it just kind of felt like a caricature a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. What's kind of strange is, I mean, as you were talking through this, I'm thinking like the times I appreciated his character the most was when he was separated from his suit and just like being a normal person. But it's like almost him trying to like psych himself up that he's got to be like this badass when he's in the suit just doesn't work for me. And maybe that's intentional because he's like trying to fake something he's not. But what would you give casting overall for this show?
Give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm the same boat, 4 out of 5. I thought hit most of the notes, really elevated for me for like knocking it out of the park 40,000 times in this episode now with Ella Purnell, so good. Walton Goggins, excellent. A lot of supporting
Walter
cast.
Goggins.
It's Walton.
You might want to go back. Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Walter.
No, you've been saying it wrong the whole time.
I've been saying it wrong?
Yeah.
You're right. It is Walton Goggins. Man, do I feel stupid. I've been watching Breaking Bad, and I think I just like immediately went to Walter because of Walter White. Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
Walton Goggins. Walton Goggins. I even wrote down Walter. I thought I copied this from Google. Because I usually do that when I pull the whole cast and then figure out who I want to talk about.
He was excellent. So there were some huge wins in this for casting for me.
Yeah. Do you want to hear your nominees?
Yeah, hit them.
I mean, I don't think you're going to have any surprises based on this conversation, but Ella Purnell, Walton Goggins. All right, sorry, let me go back. Your nominees for best casting are Ella Purnell as Lucy, Walton Goggins as the Ghoul, Kyle MacLachlan as Hank, Sarita Chowdhury as Moldaver. I feel really bad that I can't get that right. As Moldaver. And Leslie Uggams as Betty. Those were my 5 favorite performances.
Yeah.
I had a lot of honorable mentions. It was hard to whittle it down to 5, but those are the 5 I went with.
What were the last 2?
Moldaver and Betty.
Moldaver and Betty. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a 2-horse race between Goggins and Purnell.
Let me ask you this. Is that because they're main characters, so it was a bigger lift and more screen time? Or do you not think the performances of the other 3 were like really good?
I think it's that I was excited every time they came on screen, and every scene felt like there was never a lapse in their performance for me. And it's not that the supporting cast, as a supporting cast to win this, you have to like do so much with so little, which is tough. But that is when it stands out for me. And I think what is really impressive about Ella is that she was unbeknownst to me, and that's not to say she was unbeknownst to everyone, but she like really came out of this looking great because I was so new to me. It was a novelty. Goggins already knew was great. I knew he was going to put in a great performance, but I do like your note that he's doing 2 performances within this. Yeah. Which is really fun. But I am going to give it to Ella, and I will say it for this reason, and that it could have come off, and maybe it didn't work for some people. She has to play that naivete, that innocence coming out of the vault, that pluckiness. And she plays that to perfection and with so much kind of comedy surrounding it. And it's fun to see that slowly strip away as she spends more time in the wasteland, but still retain some sense of like who she is and who her character is. So I thought that was like a really fun transition of her character over the course of the season, which if they probably didn't film this in sequence. So like she's having to like hop between doing that like throughout filming, which is like really cool. To take nothing away from Walton Goggins, amazing, but I would give it to Ella.
That's totally fair.
Would you have given it to Goggins or Moldaver? You strike me as a Mold. You'd zag here, wouldn't you?
I loved the Moldaver
Yeah,
performance.
she was great. Yeah,
But I think really for me it was Moldaver, the Ghoul, or Lucy.
Yeah.
And if you had picked one of those three, whatever your justification was,
yeah,
I get it. I get it.
hmm
I will say that I probably agree that Lucy should get the award here. However, the Ghoul had the best quote.
hmm
Hands down, the best quote of the show goes to the Ghoul.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned it before. I know we're probably gonna have a best quote section, but it's when he says,
Wasteland's got its own golden rule. Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
love that quote. It's probably my quote of the year so far.
Yeah.
In a TV or TV show or movie.
Yeah. So relatable for anybody who's played a video game.
Yeah. So I agree that, I think Ella as Lucy is a great choice here, but I've got to give best quote to the Ghoul.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to talk plot? Faithless
really.
skip that one.
I love the plot, man. I really enjoyed the world they built.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the way they made the video game that I played come to life and presumably your video game was just really incredible and not something I expected. I kind of give it a 5 out of 5 for faithfulness and execution because it's visually stunning and they brought we talked about this on The Last of Us. It's really hard to build these complex video game worlds and bring visually the things that we know and love to the screen. And I think that the Brotherhood of Steel, that robot was freaking spot on. It's literally the same design. They gave them the design and they said, yeah, we're going to do it exactly. Yeah. The post-apocalyptic world was exactly the same one from the cities you're running around in.
Yeah.
And the vault was perfect.
Yeah.
That is exactly how the vault should have looked. And they did it. And yeah, they're new characters. You're not following one game, beat for beat like you did in the other one. But I still think even not doing that, they were very faithful to the plot lines of the video games. Because I read the other plot lines, so I feel like they're very faithful to that and keeping the themes in play and keeping the types of characters you're going to encounter in play.
Yeah.
They just nailed it. I don't know. I'm just gushing now. They just nailed it for me. And I think this was probably the highest category for me is the faithfulness and the execution.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I found, if I think about the term faithfulness of the source material, that part of this execution it's a 5, even though they're not directly adapting this from a specific story. But this is impressive because it slots into the canon of the Fallout world. And it, as far as I know, and that's as someone who's not played New Vegas, not played Fallout 4, doesn't seem to disrupt pre-established lore and canon, which I think is it's a very great thing. Todd Howard from Bethesda, very involved in this. Like there's a lot of care and craft that went into this. So that faithfulness part for sure for me is like perfect. Plot, just because I didn't enjoy some of the episodes, this falls a little bit lower for me. The plot is more in like a 3-5-4, which is still very good. It's it's almost like first 2 episodes for me. I actually liked the pilot, but it kind of just sagged in the second episode. So like the first 2 episodes, or maybe first 3 episodes, I would say that was kind of falling in like a 3 out of 5 territory for me. Then it jumped up to the middle. To me was lights out. Like this was like 4.5 territory, borderlining some of the vault mystery stuff. Perfect for me. I thought it landed the plane. But I thought some of the stuff was a little I was sad to see some of the plots completely wrap up in this season and not extend into season 2, but there's still a lot of interesting stuff to care about heading into season 2. But those middle episodes, they were so great for me. Really loved the mystery of it all. So I would go a 4 here on the plot. I thought it was really great story they told. Not perfect, but overall very well done and very faithful to the source material.
Yeah. Is it hard always giving the wrong rating? Let me give you a counterpoint to something you said. Yeah. And I'm not trying to change your rating. Oh, I'm trying to change your rating here. I don't know why I was going to lie to you just now. The fact that you were sad that the plot line wrapped up, doesn't that mean they did a good enough job to make you care? You know what I mean? Like, if you didn't care about it, you wouldn't care that it wrapped up.
Yeah, maybe it's less that I was sad and that I thought it was a bad choice for me, for my enjoyment.
And so, okay, so if we're talking about the squire, right? The new squire that comes in and he gets shot in the neck with the arrow, he realizes he's a ghoul and leaves. Are you considering that a wrapped up storyline, or I think he's coming back. I think the only storyline that really got wrapped up was Moldaver. Which and even that, I don't know if it's wrapped up because there's so much that's happened, and she's been alive for 200 years.
Yeah.
Same as Walter Goggins. You can bring her back in flashbacks and other things. Now you don't have her moving forward.
Yeah.
But there's room to still have that plot line there. Yeah. And I think that's why I don't consider that one wrapped. I'm not even close to considering that wrapped because she was so important to Goggins. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see how they're going to not continue showing the past from Goggins' perspective, because they have to show you how he goes from the actor, human looking to the ghoul.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I just would have preferred I'm not a showrunner. I would have preferred not doing Brotherhood stuff, more emphasis on Moldaver and Lucy to start. Maybe the Brotherhood gets introduced to kind of similar to the game. They come and save the day in the part. And then you start learning about them there. But it's just the beginning stuff with them. And I get that you need to see Maximus. So maybe you just meet Maximus when they're already out,
Yeah.
Because it felt like a bad episode of Game of Thrones where you cut to this other storyline. And I'm just this is actively bad, I think, of what was going on at the Brotherhood of Steel scenes. So it just really halted my enjoyment. And I just think of if I could place that time into other storylines, I think I would have had a better time. But I also know that you need to set that stuff up. And I know that episode 2s are tough in TV shows because you no longer have the tightness of a pilot and you're sagging under the weight of exposition that you're trying to get out. I get that that's a hard episode to land, and shows aren't always going to be a perfect trajectory up. But it doesn't take away from it still didn't work completely for me. It didn't have to feel that jarring. So that was tough.
I think you and I view episode 2 differently because I think it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you are evaluating each episode on the same scale, right? So if 2 is a hard one, it's inherently going to be lower. For me, especially when you have 8 to 10 episodes, episodes 2, and even sometimes 3, the bar is set at, does it make me want to stop watching the show? And if it doesn't do that, then it's a good episode 2, because, to your point, it's a really hard episode. Yeah. And there's a lot of world building you have to do. And I'm just ready to like suck that up. And as long as it doesn't actively make me not want to watch the show anymore, I would say it's a good episode.
I will say like it almost, I wouldn't say we were going to stop because I had to do this podcast. If it wasn't for this podcast, we might have like.
Really? Okay. So it did hit that lower. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was because of the expectations where so many people had already watched this and we were behind because we were, we were away kind of on vacation when this
Right.
was hitting. So I had a lot of preconceived notions, and we ended episode 2 and we were kind of looking at each other like, is this really the show people are like raving about? Like, and it's not that it was like bad. It was just like, it was just fine.
Okay.
So that was just what it was for me. And very some of the other things that like I felt that some of the romance stuff was forced, but I did like the funny bits of Lucy asking if Maximus wanted to have sex and him like thinking that was like a bad thing. Like that stuff was funny. But I was like shocked that they became kind of like a couple. I also just age difference wise, for some reason, I thought she was like a good 8 years older than him, just based on the timeline of like what I was piecing together. So I like wasn't expecting that. Like he almost seemed like a little bit of a younger brother in terms of age. So some of that stuff didn't work. Some of the timeline stuff I think was maybe intentionally confusing. All that to say, I mean, I'm nitpicking here. I thought they did a great job.
And counterpoint, I actually thought the forced romance added a layer of depth to the world. And I think it was intentional, because when you think about the world Lucy grew up in the vaults, and then even in the beginning episodes when they're doing the swap of 32 and 33, that romance is forced. It's it is very transactional and like, oh, like you're fine, like let's do this. And as opposed to our view of courtship and traditional marriage. And I think it belonged, and I think it felt pretty cool because it showed the difference of someone who doesn't grow up in a vault and grows up in this weird male dominated cult versus, oh, we have to reproduce or the vault dies.
Yeah.
And I thought it added a little bit there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fair take. I don't know why. I was like shocked when they kissed. I was like, oh, this is where this is going. Like I wasn't expecting that. Favorite scenes? Any kind of stick out to you that you liked?
I think the scenes in the vault where Lucy's brother is exploring 32, and also when he figures out how to get into 31 are really cool. I thought from an action perspective, I thought when the ghoul goes to New Philly and is looking for the scientist and there's that fight scene. Yeah. That was really well done. And it was, I was on the edge of my seat. It was exciting to watch that happen. I'm trying to think of other scenes. And then I think the end stuck out to me a lot.
Yeah, I agree that all the vault mystery stuff, that entire plot line was just so good. Like that was keeping me on the edge of my seat of like, I want to get back to this. I want to get back to this. Really good stuff. And that was stuff that didn't contain any of our main characters. So like you had side characters really carrying this, and I'm getting invested in the Norm Chet bromance dynamic going on here. Like that stuff was great. And the election they had in the vault for the new overseer, that was all funny. Just good stuff. I liked I thought the scene of the ghoul, or Cooper at the time, listening in on his wife's meeting at Vault-Tec was riveting stuff. Of hearing their plans, and he's saying to himself like, set him straight, honey, like, and she even takes it a step further and starts discussing like, the agreement of bombing to force this kind of outcome in the world. That stuff was good. The bridge scene with the cannibals
at its finest.
I know.
Oh,
the bridge scene with the cannibals was so funny. Putting their hands up, that was great. Do you want to hear some best episode nominations?
Sure. I'm curious to see if we'll have similar takes on the best episode.
Yeah. I'm going to give you 3 because giving 5 felt excessive.
Well, yeah, there's only 8 episodes. Yeah. I agree completely.
And take it however you want. Feel free to comment along the way, add your own episodes, whatever you want here. First nominee I had was episode 4, which is titled The Ghouls. And as I said, this is kind of where it really started to get my claws into me. This is where Norm is first investigating Vault 32 mystery.
Okay.
He gets over there and he sees that like it didn't look like the struggle he was expecting. And he's feeling something is off. This is also the episode where the ghoul sells Lucy off for meds.
Mm-hmm.
And she frees herself. She kills the robot. They're in the Super Duper Mart, which was the first place I went in Fallout 3 and was getting my ass handed to me. It's like it's the beginning of her transition from the Vault Dweller, sheltered kind of girl into kind of a badass. Next nominee I had was episode 6. This is The Trap. This is the one where Cooper starts to become suspicious of what's going on at Vault-Tec. His wife is using the Pip-Boy around the house. Lucy and Maximus are in Vault 4. And it's when they first, not when they first get down there, but it's when they're kind of stuck in quarantine and then they get out of quarantine and then they meet the overseer and they're like, what is going on here with all the mutated people? And they're both kind of carrying out investigations. And then Maximus ends up, living the high life in his vault, and their kind of perspectives are flipping where Lucy's like, we got to get out of here. And Maximus is like, we got to stay in here. I thought that stuff was good. And this is also the episode where Cooper goes to the secret meeting at the funeral home that Moldaver is leading. Just great, good stuff in that one. And then this wasn't a best episode for me. It was a top half of the season maybe, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't put the finale episode, which I probably don't need to cover the plot too much. It's the culmination of all the plot lines. Lucy uncovers the backstory of, her dad. She finds him there. They, meet up with Moldaver. All of the past stuff is coming to light of Cooper's finding out what his wife is doing, and all of that kind of reaches its head. So those were 3 that stuck out to me. Did I miss your favorite episode?
It
is hard to me because like episodes 4 through 6 really blend together.
Yeah.
Especially in a binge TV show.
I'm almost thinking that maybe episode 7 would have been on my list. But of your list, I think I would go with episode 4. I think episode 8 was great, and I agree that it probably should be on the list just because of the importance of it.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? No, I'm just going to, episode 4 is the one I'm going to pick. I think you learn a lot there. It's where you get some great lines.
Mm-hmm.
It really dives into the world, and it's exciting. I mean, there's a lot of action just jam-packed into that.
Yeah. Probably it's like the most time we spend too with a robot, with the one at the Super Duper Mart and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it branches out the world a little bit too. I did really like that episode. And for the Vault mystery stuff, I did really love the stuff in Vault 4 though. That was very good. And I'd say
it was funny,
yeah,
but it didn't strike me as best episode material.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was a good episode, but I don't know. It just doesn't hit best episode for me.
Yeah, it's probably top 3. I don't know if it's number 1. And I did like the finale. I thought the reveal that the ghoul in the meeting, at the end was her mom. Didn't see that coming. That was a good one.
I didn't either.
So that was cool. I kind of had suspicions that her dad wasn't going to be a great guy or who he said he was. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like a season finale, I do feel like it landed the plane. But sometimes like the solving of the mystery isn't as fun as uncovering the mystery in shows. So I think that's why I love some of the earlier stuff. World building and aesthetics. How you feeling around this?
4 out of 5 out of 5. To be honest, I
We are
feel
so
like
different.
we've already covered the world building and aesthetics. So I don't really have much to add to what we've already said. So I'm just going to give it a score.
Yeah, you stomped all over that in plot. Like, I feel like that's why you gave it a 5, was for world building and aesthetic reasons.
Well, if we're talking about faithfulness to the source material, the world building's the biggest aspect of that.
Yeah.
If you're not copying the game directly, how are you bringing in those elements that build the world that we've known and loved or liked or whatever, however you feel about the games? How do you bring that to the screen? And they did it for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not perfect, but it was as perfect as you're going to get for the type of world they need to build.
Yeah. Yeah, where for me, this was the strongest part of all 5 categories. I thought the world building and aesthetics and bringing Fallout to life was the best thing they did. Just above casting, way above plot. Not way above plot, but significantly above plot for me. Where I thought the Pip-Boy looked awesome. The blue vault suits popped so hard on the screen. They filmed this on location in Namibia. You know, they were also in the LA desert. They were building sets in New York. Walton Goggins was sitting for hours doing prosthetics. Like, the show looked like you could reach out and touch it and felt very real. And nothing felt green screeny, which for this could have been very easy to do that. Like, they really brought this to life. So I thought visually looked amazing. And then for world building, I don't even know that much about Fallout yet, even though I've played 3. And the amount of Easter eggs and nuggets for fans who love these games is endless. Way more even than The Last of Us. So I thought they did a really exceptional job bringing this to life. With the exception, I said, of, like, I would say the plot around the Brotherhood. That's why I, dropped that score in that section. But I will say the suits, like, they actually built those suits and they looked excellent. Like, that was actual armor he was, like, walking in around. So that was good stuff. So I did really like that. So I gave this one a 5. The only thing I didn't like, this sounds like a minor nitpick. And you'll know this because you watch Amazon shows. Does Amazon have commercials in their television shows?
Sometimes.
Because
I think
this show, the editing of it, there were, like, cuts where it would, like, fade to black, like it was going to commercial, and then it would come back. And to me, it was so disorienting, where I'm like, why are we having ad or cut breaks in this when there's no ads in this show, and we're on a streaming service that I didn't think had ads. And it was just like, it was really taking me out of the show when I was watching it, where 4 to 5 times every episode, they would do, like, a hard cut, and then the next scene would just start. And it was very different to me than even as something like a Stranger Things or stuff you see on HBO, like any other streaming service, where it's just a continuous episode being told without the ad breaks within, where this one, like, it had the breaks, but it never cut to ad. It was just so weird. And I was like, was this pieced together strangely, or are they expecting this to go to something that has ads? It was just very odd.
I didn't notice it, to be honest.
Hated it.
I believe you, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. It just really took me out of it. Didn't like that. But that's a nitpick, and I'm not going to dock it for that. So I kind of give it a 5 in this section.
Nice.
Soundtrack?
It
hit the vibes.
Was memorable.
They hit the vibes they needed to. I mean, unless you're a big fan of, like, 50s kind of old-timey music. There was some Johnny Cash, though, in it. I think there was like 8 Johnny Cash songs.
I gave it a 3.5.
Yeah, same.
And I liked Johnny Cash. I feel like to get a 4, I need to be able to remember at least one riff or song that you had in here. And I remember there being Johnny Cash, but I couldn't tell you what Johnny Cash songs were in there. I could sing one, I couldn't hum one. So I'm just like, it did its job, so it gets above a 3, above just average. But it wasn't quite memorable enough to get a 4 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like 3.5 is a good score. I mean, that's above average. That's like straddling the good, great, right between that territory. And everything they did made it feel like the Fallout world.
Yes.
Like nothing was noticeable. Like it immersed me in the environment. It was exactly what I was expecting when they would cut to like, a wide shot and you just hear like the music playing. Like that stuff was fun. I was glad we got a radio station in here. I think that was episode 7.
That was cool.
So that was fun. I thought the stuff sounded good. The suit sounded good. But it definitely wasn't, knocking me out of the park in any spots. Which, like we've said before, isn't like a massive criticism if it blends in and does its job. But I thought it was just, I thought it was, as maybe Nick Hinkson would say, is good, not great.
It's good, not great.
Legacy, standalone appeal. Interesting one, as this is so fresh. What was your take on this?
I think this holds up. Standalone, I think we've seen the numbers. It's being streamed by lots of people who have never played the games, and it's getting great reviews by people who have not played the games. And I think because of that, you have to give it a high score for standalone appeal, because that's exactly what they've done. And in terms of legacy, I think it's going to go down as, at least as of now, the second best video game adaptation we've seen in the last couple decades. Yeah, really ever.
Yeah. It's exceeded expectations.
In terms of a drama, I think like some of games have, like Sonic's been made into a kids movie, and kids seem to love the Sonic movies. So it's hard to like say best ever. I'm going to say as an adult drama, it is the second best of all time.
And it was still, drama elements to this. There's still a lot within this that is like very campy in a good way, and like comedy. Like you can see the guy who was from Silicon Valley in The Office, like that coming to light within this. Like it was much more funny than The Last of Us.
The Last of Us wasn't funny.
No, not funny at all.
There were moments where you smiled and maybe giggled, but this was funny. That was like
this just had a different
relief,
different tone.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it's too early to say on Legacy, but this is smash success. See how season 2 goes. I think in terms of standalone appeal, it did its job, which I never thought they would do, of like bringing in people who have not played the games and enjoying this. Like to me, because I knew that this was a very video gamey game, and like they were probably going to lean into that. I was, my fiance enjoyed this. Like, she had similar trajectory to me in terms of liking it, but this was appealing. She said people at her work are like talking about it and like it. And we're seeing the numbers. Like you said, millions of people are watching this, people who've probably not played the games. So I think there's good standalone appeal if this is a whole new world to you. So it's early to say. I'm kind of between a 4 and a 4.5. It's hard to give a 4.5 when we're so new, but for like what it did over what they probably expected, I don't know. They did do a really good job. Where are you at?
I was in the same spot. I've been thinking that I'll probably go with a soft 4.
Yeah.
Because I want to see what this looks like in 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah. And
or
season 2.
Right. And I think season 2 will make or break the standalone appeal for me and the legacy. Yeah. But for right now, soft 4 with the potential for a 4.5 or 5.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's definitely not going down, but it could go up.
Yeah. 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 I feel like on the standalone end, probably pretty much a 5. And on the legacy, like, I think it's laid
too early to tell.
Great foundation for that, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll I'll go 4 as well.
I agree with what you just said 100%.
To you, who won or who stole the show?
I think very much like The Last of Us, and I won't harp on it, but people that are video game players that want to see IP come to the screen. And also Amazon, because I like Amazon shows. I know that Amazon's produced good things, but there's other people like you who maybe have avoided Amazon because they had some early misses that may watch more Amazon shows. And I just think the more studios that we get pumping out great content, the better that is for consumers as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
those are my noms.
It is a win for Amazon, no doubt. Like a big win when they've had some pretty big L's in terms of like the IP that they've bought.
Yeah.
And turning and like flipping that into something that they hope catches on. Like this is one that they're probably jumping for joy. Like, yes, this really caught fire. I had my 2 nominees, fans of Fallout series. I mean, they are eating good here. Like eating real good. This was great for them. Everything you hope for if you're a fan of a franchise, that they like take it with the level of craft and care that they did. So like A+ from Amazon on that. What's weird is he didn't win my casting award, but I was going to say Walton Goggins. Like he's getting so much love for this. And
As he should.
Like, he's up there for me. But I do say we probably got to go, fans of the video game, fans of this franchise, they probably won this here.
For sure.
So if I had these scores up right, pretty sure you got a 20.5. And I think
that sounds about right.
I am the same as we were just flipped on our 5 and 4s.
So 41 out of 50?
So it's a 41 out of 50. Very solid.
Not a bad score.
No.
Where's it put it on our list?
Yeah, let me see what's...
We should probably publish this list.
Yeah. Yeah, we should share the scores after on Instagram. Yeah, Dune Part 2, we gave a 43.5 out of 50. Recently Sherlock was 38.5. Hunger Games was a 38. Ocean's 11 was a 47. Damn, that's we really love Ocean's 11. I think that checks out. Like this has the potential to really rise up, but it's kind of like just below kind of like a Dune Part 2. Which I think is fair.
But way below Ocean's 11 because
not sniffing that.
That's an S tier movie.
Yeah. That's great. Anything else you want to say here?
No, it's been fun. Thanks for sticking with us. We've got Queen's Gambit coming out next.
Yeah,
we flipped them.
Last episode that Queen's Gambit was coming out next, but now it's really coming up next.
Well, Randy lied to you. I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, Queen's Gambit coming up. If you have thoughts, questions, you want to share, reach out to us on Instagram, Rewatch Play Podcast, or hit us on the email at rewatchplaypod. Find us on your major platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review, 5 stars only, as those things help more people find the show. And most importantly, please hit the follow, tell friends about it. It's the way kind of we get it out there. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks, Nick, for joining me. Until next time, everyone.